Now that I have ranked every position in the NFL going into the 2020 NFL season, I'm here to give you some rankings for the specialists in the NFL. Who are these specialists? Well, the players that play a specific role. And I'm not just talking about returners, kickers, and punters, although they will be on this list as well. I'm talking about the players that play a specific role. Do one job very well for their football team. I'm talking about the nickel cornerbacks, the slot receivers, third down running backs, and more. These are the best specialists in the NFL going into the 2020 NFL season. Before I give you the best role players in the NFL today, Gronk spike the like button, subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL rankings just like this, and comment below your opinion on who you believe are the best specialists and role players in the NFL right now. For each one of these positions, I've listed 3 to 5 players at every spot according to the strength that I feel this position has across the NFL. So if it's 3 players at the spot, I feel like the position isn't overly strong. And if there are 5, I feel like the position is very important and strong across the NFL. Let's kick it off with the third down receiving running back. These players come in on only passing downs at the running back position. They run routes very crisp out of the backfield. Sometimes teams split them out as receivers, and their primary role is to pass block for the quarterback, to catch screens, and to make plays in the passing game. At number 3, Nyheim Hines of the Indianapolis Colts. 2 seasons into his career, he already has over 100 receptions. He contributes as well as a returner for the Colts. I'm extremely intrigued to see how he does with Phillip Rivers now as his quarterback. We know that Rivers loves to pass to the running back. At number 2, I have Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson, now of the Texans, formerly of the Browns, has pretty much put up over 40 catches every season in his NFL career, including one season of 74 catches. He wasn't as utilized in the Texans scheme last year. I'm intrigued to see how the Texans divide the snaps between Duke Johnson and David Johnson now that Carlos Hyde has left. But he was effective in that playoff game versus the Bills with a couple key plays, and I believe will have a larger role for the Texans in 2020. And at number 1, James White of the Patriots. James White has 315 receptions and 24 touchdowns since 2015 when he became the official third down receiving back of the New England Patriots. The one question I have about White is how long can he keep this up? Is this guy going to be the next Kevin Falk for New England? And the second thing I have to ask is, without Tom Brady, how is his role going to change? Is he going to be as big of a part of this offense, or is his role going to change? Maybe use less, use more? I'm not quite sure, but James White is an awesome player in what he does. The next position is the slot wide receiver. These players play over 60% of their snaps in the slot. These players often line up inside and catch the football and run routes very crisp, getting open underneath for their quarterbacks. I did keep some receivers off this list that you might think should be on this list, including Michael Thomas, Chris Godwin, Jarvis Landry. These players also play a lot on the outside and just as much play on the outside as they do in the slot, including Michael Thomas, who plays more outside than in the slot. Jarvis Landry, surprisingly, actually played just as much outside last season as he did in the slot. Chris Godwin, you could argue, should be on this list because of the percentage of snaps he played in the slot, but considering that he is the number 2 receiver in 2 wide receiver sets, I didn't put him on this list. At number 5, I have Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald might not be the same athletic freak that he used to be in terms of the leaping ability, the speed, and everything that he offered in his prime. But the thing that you have to talk about when it comes to Larry Fitzgerald and his career and the longevity is the fact that he was able to go from an outside number 1 receiver in the league and switch his game up, get more crafty inside as a route runner, learn the slot position, to just an expert level. He's not even as good as he was a couple of years ago where he was dynamic in the slot, but he did have the highest percentage of snaps, the most snaps in the NFL in the slot last season. He also had the third most yards, so he is still an efficient receiver when he's in the slot, and that's pretty much the only place he plays now for the Cardinals as that third receiver on the field in the Cliff offense. At number 4, I have Jamison Crowder of the New York Jets. When Crowder and Darnold were on the field last season, they had a connection that was one of the best in the league. He tied for the second most touchdowns from the slot position last season and the fourth most yards. Jamison Crowder just is an expert route runner. And what I love about Crowder is his ability to not only be able to catch the football and make yards after the catch, but his ability to go down the field from the slot position, that's very rare. At number 3, I have Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd did play much more on the outside last season due to the fact that AJ Green was not really on the field. And now that they also drafted T. Higgins and AJ Green is expected to be back, I would actually expect Tyler Boyd's snaps from the slot to rise. I think that you're only going to see him become an even better slot receiver as his career continues, but he had the third most receiving yards from the slot in 2019 and is one of the most effective one-on-one jump ball receivers from the slot position. At number 2, I have Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp led the NFL in slot yards in 2019. Inside this McVay offense, very important role, especially as we've seen in the red zone. Cooper Kupp is absolutely extraordinary in the slot and gets a lot of the opportunities and the looks in that red zone, in the end zone for the big time plays and touchdowns. We also saw that Cooper Kupp got a little bit better after the catch last season, and he'll continue as a young player to develop, and he might get into all-time status as a slot receiver by the time he's in his 30s. At number 1, Julian Edelman of the New England Patriots. Of course, Edelman has been, to me, the best pure slot receiver in the game pretty much since like 2013 or 2014. Edelman also does line up on the outside. It is kind of a myth that he doesn't ever line up on the outside, but he's much more efficient and effective for the Patriots when he is in the slot. He also led the NFL in 2019 in slot receptions, and he was in the top 3 in yards as well. Edelman is just the most dynamic, shifty route runner from the slot position in the NFL still. Moving to the defensive side of the football, the pass rushing specialists. These players are at least the third edge rusher in the rotation for their defense, and they mostly only come into the game on passing downs. At number 3, Carl Lawson of the Cincinnati Bengals. You might actually think that Lawson is a starter. That's not actually the case. Typically last season, it was Sam Hubbard on one edge, Carlos Dunlap on the other, and Carl Lawson would come in and mix it up as a pass rusher on third down. He tied 6th in quarterback hits in 2019. He's a young, dynamic, really athletic edge player that I actually expect his snaps to rise in 2020. At number 2, I have Benson Mayowa, now of the Seattle Seahawks, formerly of the Raiders. On 234 snaps in 2019, he had 8 sacks. That's all you really have to say when it comes to efficiency off the edge as a pure pass rusher. He only had those 234 snaps because he is a pure pass rusher. He's not really a guy that's going to come in there and stop the run or defend the run. And I'm very intrigued to see if he brings that to Seattle and becomes their number 1 go-to pass rusher off the edge. They also brought back Bruce Irvin. So I'm intrigued to see how the rotation exists within Seattle now that Jadeveon Clowney is gone. And at number 1, Adrian Claiborne of the Cleveland Browns. He played for Atlanta last season, New England the year before that. He's been pretty much everywhere the last couple of years, but the one thing that has existed for Claiborne has been his ability to create pressure off the edge, and Claiborne is pretty much, to me, the poster boy for the third edge rusher on a team, and I think that's what he's going to bring to Cleveland, the ability to just use his power and quickness off the edge and get in the face of quarterbacks. Claiborne did not put up the most sacks last year for this position or for this role, but he put up a ton of pressures, hurries, and just overall disruption. Moving to the secondary, the nickel cornerback position, which is pretty much not just a role player, but actually more of a every down player than you would think. The nickel cornerback position is extremely important to NFL defensive success in the modern NFL because of how many great slot receivers there are in the NFL today and how much teams pass from 3 receiver sets. These nickel corners are on the field more often than you would think. At number 5, DJ Hayden of the Jacksonville Jags. DJ Hayden finally has reached his potential and has finally been put in the right position to succeed in Jacksonville as the slot nickel defender. DJ Hayden was kind of misplaced, miscast in the past as a higher draft pick expected with big time potential and has finally been able to reach that potential in Jacksonville. He had a really effective season, efficient season. They got rid of Ramsey, they got rid of Bouye, but they stuck with Hayden, and I believe there's a reason for that because he was really good last year. At number 4, Jonathan Jones of the New England Patriots. Jonathan Jones is a specialist in the truest sense of the word. I mean, Jonathan Jones was a huge, big-time playmaker for the Patriots last year. He pretty much is the fast corner, the quick corner for the Patriots. The Patriots play a little bit differently in their secondary than a lot of other teams because of Belichick's defensive prowess. They match up on players. Jones does play outside. He does play inside. It's more of a matchup game with New England, dependent on the matchup, the players that they are defending at the receiver position. One week, Jones may play a lot less, and one week, Jones will play a lot more. It's just dependent on who he's playing. If they're playing the Chiefs, he's going to cover Tyreek Hill. If they're playing the Giants, he's going to cover Golden Tate. It really depends on what team they're playing, and if they're playing a team like the Chargers with bigger receivers, you might not see him on the field as much due to the depth that the Patriots have. Jones is an excellent player, and he showcased his playmaking ability. The one play that really stands out to me last year was the Nick Chubb forced fumble from behind where he punched the ball out. Just an awesome, smart, all-around slot defender. At number 3 is Kenny Moore of the Indianapolis Colts. Speaking about all-around slot defenders, Kenny Moore is not only one of the smartest zone coverage defenders at the nickel position in the NFL, but he is also a really great run defender with the ability to come up and make run stops. Kenny Moore has been the best corner for my money on the Colts for the last couple of seasons, and I believe he'll be that again in 2020. At number 2, Brian Poole of the New York Jets. There's a reason that the Jets paid Brian Poole because he had a resurgence last season. They got him for the cheap because he kind of had a downturn and a weak season for Atlanta, and he was kind of in no man's land at a point, but he's back, and he's playing really well. Brian Poole just defending the quicker, smaller, shiftier receivers in the league. And he can do that at a very high level because a lot like Jonathan Jones, he is built the same way that these slot guys are. He's about 5'9", 5'8". He's really quick side to side, and he can keep up to their shifty route running, and he has to when he plays Edelman of the Patriots 2 times a year. At number 1, I have K'Waun Williams of the San Francisco 49ers. A lot of people say that the 49ers secondary isn't the greatest in the world, but Williams is the guy that actually stands out to me as a player that is kind of under the radar and underrated. Richard Sherman is, of course, there, and he is the big name, but Sherman did mention through the season last year in 2019 that Williams, he believed, was a Pro Bowl caliber corner, and I think there's a reason for that. Because of his versatility and his role within the 49er defense as a nickel defender to be able to come up and stop the run, to be able to play man-to-man, and to be able to play zone, Williams is just very versatile and plays a massive role for the 49er defense. Now to the special teams, the returners. At number 3, I have Cordell Patterson of the Chicago Bears. Patterson left New England, got his Super Bowl, went to Chicago, and hey, he was still as awesome as ever. Patterson has been a multi-time All-Pro, multi-time Pro Bowler. He had another touchdown in 2019 returning the football and had the most yards as a kick returner in the league. At number 2, I have Jamal Agnew of the Detroit Lions. Agnew was the only returner in the sport with a touchdown punt returning and a touchdown kick returning. He is now moving to wide receiver because he is that dynamic. At number 1, Deontay Harris of the New Orleans Saints. Harris had the most punt return yards in the league last season, and every time I watched him, He just kind of reminded me of the next Darren Sproles. His shiftiness just makes him almost impossible to tackle. To the punter position, at number 3, you could have argued a bunch of different people. I went with Jake Bailey of the Patriots because as a rookie, he was extremely impressive, ranking number 7 by PFF for their punting grades. And he also had the most punts inside the 20-yard line in the NFL last season. And yeah, the Patriots offense wasn't the greatest last year. They punted a lot. So Jake Bailey was relied upon to put the defense in a good position to get the ball back. And I think he's actually going to be, for a long time, one of the best punters in the game. At number 2, Johnny Hekker of the LA Rams. This is probably the first season in a long time where I have not ranked him as the best punter in the game, but he really didn't stand out from a statistical perspective last season. He still can offer the great leg, but also the ability to throw the ball and all the trick plays that they're able to do in LA because of his skill set. But he had the 3rd most punts inside the 20-yard line. He had the 3rd highest yards per attempt punting the ball. So he's still up there in terms of stats, just not at number 1. The number 1 punter in the game today is Brett Kern of the Tennessee Titans. Brett Kern was absolutely phenomenal, out of this world for the Titans in the playoffs. He just downed punt after punt after punt within the 10-yard line versus the Patriots in the elements. That just speaks to how accurate this guy is. He had the most punts out of bounds in the NFL, led the league in that category. He also had the only elite grade by PFF as a punter with over a 90 grade. That was 13 points higher than second place. I'm going to give you 5 kickers because the kicker position isn't often talked about, but it is important in terms of wins and losses. At number 5, Matt Prater. Matt Prater, to me, just has arguably the biggest leg in the league, and he showcased it in 2019, going 7 for 8 in kicks past 50 yards. He's not the most accurate within the 50-yard range, but when he gets past that 50-yard range, he is one of the most dynamic weapons at the kicker position in the NFL. At number 4, I have Harrison Butker. This guy has just been very consistent, making kick after kick in the playoffs and in the regular season. He's been one of the best kickers for the past couple of seasons, and he was 31 for 32 within 50 yards in 2019. At number 3, Chris Boswell of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Chris Boswell missed only 1 kick within 50 yards last season, and to do that in Pittsburgh for 8 games where it's windy and the weather is a little iffy, that's really impressive. Boswell's had his ups and downs in his career, but 2019 was certainly an up. At number 2, I have Josh Lambo of the Jacksonville Jags. Lambo only missed 1 field goal attempt out of 34 last season for the Jags, and he ranked 2nd in PFF grade. Looking forward, Jacksonville, hey, they might not be the best team in the league, but at least they have the 2nd best kicker. At number 1, Justin Tucker. You could argue that Justin Tucker is the best player in the NFL when taking into account the difference between him and the 2nd best player in the league. Now, it doesn't really show from a statistical perspective, but that's because the Ravens just asked Justin Tucker to make absolutely dumb kicks sometimes, and sometimes he'll make it and sometimes he won't. But he led the NFL at PFF grade once again last season, and when he misses, it's shocking at this point. That's how good he is. The last category is the assistant coaches category. A shout out to 3 coaches that I believe are the best assistant coordinators in the league. At number 3, Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now you may ask, Mitch, the Bucs defense wasn't that great last season. Well, I'll say, look at the improvement that Bowles was able to bring to the Bucs defense in 1 year after being hired after he was fired by the Jets as the head coach. So he has head coach experience. Now he's a coordinator, and he extremely upgraded the Bucs defense. Not only did the Bucs rank 1st in run defense from a yards and yards per attempt perspective last season, but they also ranked 15th in yards last season after ranking 27th in 2018. That's 12 spots better than the season before. So Todd Bowles did an absolutely fantastic job with this defense, and I expect them to jump into the top 10 in 2020. At number 2, I have Don Wink Martindale of the Baltimore Ravens. Best defensive coordinator in the game and the 2nd best coordinator, in my opinion, in the league. Martindale last season had his defense in Baltimore top 4 in yards, top 4 in points, and second in passing touchdowns allowed. Martindale just does some extremely creative, trend-setting things on the defensive side of the ball. From a blitz package perspective and from a coverage perspective, this guy is at the top of the list. At number 1, Josh McDaniels of the New England Patriots. There's a reason why the Patriots supposedly pay McDaniels as basically a head coach, because he's that valuable and has been to this franchise for the past forever long he's been there. I believe he's been there since 2001 or 2000. He's been in the NFL for a long time, and he's still relatively young and still maybe will get the head coaching opportunity that he does deserve. But McDaniels, just look at the longevity. I mean, 7 top 4 offenses in the NFL since he became the offensive coordinator of the New England Patriots. I am extremely intrigued to see how he does this year with Jared Stidham or whoever is at quarterback for New England without Tom Brady. But he did do very well with Matt Castle in 2008. So we'll see how it goes in 2020. All right, there you go. Those are the best specialists in the NFL on offense, defense, and coaching-wise. If you enjoyed, Gronk spike the like button, subscribe to The Bottom Line View for more NFL just like this. Peace.